Hello everybody, and welcome to Anime Survivor, Week 2, Elimination, Week 1. This is your host, Scott, and joining me this week, as always, is my co-host, Eric.
It's time to duel.
And we are joined by a very special guest, a longtime fan of the show and previous member, Andy.
What's up?
Thanks, Andy.
Hooray. 3 people again. Feels good.
Yeah. The OG crowd that isn't the OG crowd, but pretends to be the OG crowd's back together.
The second most.
I miss the weeboos.
Anyway, so this is our first elimination week of Anime Survivor, which will follow the following format. We are doing this brief introduction right now. We'll quickly ask our guest a few questions to get them situated and let you guys know what they're all about. We'll do opening arguments, both my argument and Scott's argument. I guess we'll introduce the shows first, actually. And then go into a free argument section where Scott and I will argue back and forth of why our chosen show deserves to be kicked off at any point during which Andy can cut in and ask a question. And we will, of course, respond to him because this is our role as appeasers of his grand wisdom. And then at the end, we'll have a closing argument from both myself and Scott, and Andy will make the final decision as to what will be cut. The scoreboard will be updated as for who is winning between me and Scott, and we'll say our goodbyes.
Yep. Right. So I think we can go into questions.
Yeah. So Andy, first question: what is your experience with anime?
I am a recovering weeboo. I started getting into the weaker stuff when I was about 13 and quickly progressed from there. By the time I was 15, I was doing a hard slice of life in the back alley.
Sorry, we've all been there. We accept you.
Now I just make fun of people for watching anime and read a whole bunch of manga.
The final form of all weebs, truly.
Yes.
Exact Munda, my dude.
You've reached the end game.
Then your second question is, what is your favorite isekai?
That would be The Martian, starring Matt Damon.
Okay. Why is that your favorite isekai?
It's the classic tale of a high school boy who is stranded on another world, where he must learn how to survive given his exceptional ability with intelligence and also a crashed rocket ship. My favorite best girl in that is Rock-chan, followed secondly by Potato-kun.
Fantastic. Right. Damon-san has that ass to die for.
Exactly.
Anyway. Final question: if you could fuck anyone in history, who'd it be?
How the hell am I supposed to respond to that? I'm probably just gonna pick someone like 20,000 years ago. Doesn't matter who, just to start that genetics line. So
right.
eventually,
So,
by
think
giving
about
it back
genetics.
to me, I'm related to everyone.
So your goal is to be the king of everyone, the overall patriarch.
My goal is to have my haplogroup be the dominant haplogroup across the entire world.
That could also be fixed with a nice snappier gauntlet.
Yo, back in time, you could be the origin of all weebs. Who knows?
Exactly.
Alright, well I think that sets Andy up as a perfect, non-biased arbiter, and gives you a bit of flavor as to his perspective.
As all American judges should be. Unlike those dirty Japanese.
Completely impartial. If only Japan had justice, then maybe we wouldn't have to do this.
Yeah. But anyways, let's go on to what we are going on about, which is the 2 shows we're going to kick off. So I'll introduce my show, which I am going to kick off, which is clearly the worst of the 7 shows, which is Shinya Tensei Bakabon, which was, for people that forgot, the show about comedy that's originally a Showa-era manga that's been readapted.
And I don't know what my compatriot is going on about, but clearly the worst of the 7 shows is Jashin-chan Dropkick, which I will be attempting to kick off with the help of my dearest friend and potential lover, Andy. It is a slice-of-life comedy. My unbiased lover. Yes. So it is a slice-of-life comedy about a bunch of monster girls that are bland, it's not funny, it jumps right in, it's terrible, but that's my argument. Whoops, I got extra time. It's a terrible show. Slice of life comedy monster girls.
Alright then, Andy, you want to give us the signal and we can start this debate?
Alright. Should I start with a question or allow you to rant for
No, we're gonna have, these weren't the opening arguments, these were just to introduce the show. Now we're gonna have actual opening, so you just need to say like go or something.
Yeah, he's asking you to shoot off the proverbial
Alright.
starting bell.
In that case, let's begin.
Jashin-chan Dropkick is an uncomfortably bland and dull show starring a cast of monster girls with less personality than a Disney TV Direct villain. Adapted from a manga, the anime jumps straight into the worst period of slice-of-life comedies, which is any part after the beginning. The comedy in the show is practically non-existent, with the main recurring jokes being outright violence and uncouth fourth-wall breaks. It fails to appeal to our good-hearted perverts and advocates for extremely unhealthy social practices by idolizing domestic abuse and mind break. It teaches kids that if you're a dick, you can be the main character and people will still love you. It sets unrealistic expectations of demon summonings that will greatly disenfranchise our youth. Dropkick fails as a slice of life, fails as a comedy, fails as fat material, and most importantly, it fails our kids. Save your dick. Pick Dropkick.
Alright, clap, clap, clap.
Alright, Scott, that was a...
Yeah, that was an intro. Alright, Shinya Tensei Bakaban is meta. It's jokes about the show. Except, there's one problem. There's no show. It's just jokes about the fact that it is a show. It's meta without substance. This is the kind of thing that brings down anime and meta, the highest form of comedy, into the slog. This show is so bad that I wish I had listened to my old man and joined the Navy. But I hate the smell of seawater, so now I'm stuck here, always getting pulled up on the carpet by these shitty shows. Meanwhile, we have a much better show, a show we should all cherish. Jashin-chan Dropkick, which is a show that starts in the middle of things, in media res, and is about devils, much like the great epic Paradise Lost. This show is just an adaptation of John Milton's greatest work of fiction. Vote for Dropkick to live. Thank you.
Well.
Alright, I just want to say that I am both disgusted and aroused by that statement.
That is the perfect mix. So if I may jump into things, I will start with the argument that you brought up that is a detriment to the show. Jashin-chan Dropkick skips to 50 chapters into what was the manga, past all the fun character introductions, and straight into the repetitive part of any comedy slice of life where you just do the same boring shit that they've been doing for the first 49 chapters.
But you see, that is clearly a deconstruction of comedy shows, where there's just one joke. So here, they're skipping past the part of introductions to highlight the fact that there's only one joke. It's intentional, and therefore funny.
Jokes are a very fine, chemical compound that requires multiple components, and when you break it down into its individual atoms, like Monster Girl or Small Bit, they're not funny. You need the whole compound together, and this deconstruction has gone too far. I don't eat a deconstructed salad. That's just...
Interrupt for a second.
I was in my salad metaphor, Andy. This can wait.
No, it really
a deconstructed
salad. Much like chemistry, there are catalysts, and Monster Girls do act as an effective catalyst for anything, in my opinion. Now,
thank you, impartial judge.
Counterpoint. These Monster Girls are incredibly unsexualized, and then what's even the point of having them?
One of them isn't even wearing a shirt. How is that unsexualized?
Because there's always hair, and there's nothing there.
Because if you see the whole thing, you lose the mystery. You have to have that bit of mystery to entice you.
When you say there is nothing there, are you insinuating that flat is not justice?
Flat is justice, which is, I guess that's where all the justice in Japan went. Anyway. Yeah.
Bottom text.
But, Scott, I would counter by saying we have seen literally every other part of this snake's body as it has been chopped up, bloodletted out, and just, mangled and torn in front of us.
That brings me to another great point, which is this show's portrayal of violence, which is probably some of the best satire I've seen this week. You see, this show shows how pointless violence is, but at the same time we see the enjoyment that it brings to our main witch girl. And this shows us, because she's a massive sadist, that violence is pointless and can't solve anything. But those who benefit and enjoy violence, like politicians, arms dealers, senators' sons, and fortunate ones, thrive on this violence. Vietnam is basically a metaphor for this show.
Scott, I may have to point out here that Vietnam was a bad thing.
Exactly.
I may have to point out that this show portrays violence as something that is enjoyable and fun, something that will make you stand out in a good way. This is teaching our kids to bully each other.
The people suffering from the violence aren't having a good time. It's the people inflicting that violence who are having the good time.
I don't think that if we teach our children that this is a world of dog eats dog, how will they ever learn to love? That's what I really want, is for my kids to love each other, so I can ship them with each other.
Eric, that is incestual. How will you respond?
Incest is wins.
Right, but if you want a show that's teaching our children not to love each other, it's Shinya Tensei Bakuban, which is teaching us that our children are worthless and we should just focus on the last generation and look back to our fathers. This show is obsessed with the father in the show and not even the character whose name the title of the show is.
May I say that
friggin' Bakuban doesn't show up.
I respect that Shinya Tensei Bakuban focuses on what works. And back in the Showa era manga, the father became the most popular character and they switched the show to him. These writers know what works, and Papa works.
But if you can't look forward to progress, you're just gonna be stuck in these loops. And that's what this show is. It's a loop of jokes that don't make any sense because they're based on characters no one knows, and they're meta.
May I just say that you are missing the purpose of this show. We live in an era where the politically strong... We live in a society with a growing force of extremely powerful political figures, those being our elderly. This force is growing every day, every year, and in Japan they are taking over, in America they are coming close. And these elderly need to be satiated lest they start building ramps on all of our buildings, putting dentures holders in all of our restaurants, and otherwise making everybody be their grandchildren. Our elderly need to be play-sated, and Shinya Tensei Bakuban does a wonderful job of making them think that this era still can appeal to them and lets them sit back in their armchairs and do nothing all day. This is staving off the elderly invasion.
Google images for Shinya Tensei Bakuban, and I'm currently seeing one man who looks a bit like a Fidel Castro type character. Now, just based off that, tell me why he shouldn't be best girl.
Because there's an eel dog in that show, and how can an eel dog not be best girl?
An eel dog?
I'll tell you how, Scott, is because there's a very simple missed pun in that eel dog's name. It is named Unagi Inu instead of Unaginu. All they had back in the Showa era were simple puns and like very simple visual gags. And to miss a simple joke like that, it's genius. It's genius. It's a genius thing. It's a genius move. I can't, because we're in a new era.
Kick this show
we're in a new era where you can't just keep recycling the jokes of the past. This manga has truly updated its style of comedy to move away from these simple puns. It was a brilliant move. Phew. Phew. Respect your elders, kiddo.
You know what does have brilliant moves is Devil Dropkick, where they feature a reference to one of the greatest literary pieces of all time, that being Peanuts by Charles Schulz, in that they have a demon dog that is clearly Snoopy, and a demon goat horrible monster thing that's clearly Woodstock. That is high literature, let me tell you.
But this great joke is subjugated to 10 seconds before an ad break. These characters are not respected, and clearly this show does not respect the Peanuts.
That's because they're having to shove in so much high literature. Like, have you considered the fact that John Milton sounds a lot like John Milton sounds a lot like John Stuart Mill, who was one of the great forefathers of liberal ideology. And he created so much in Britain that is now standard of liberal thought. And that is basically what this show is the standard of liberal thought.
Eric, a question for you. If ReZero was able to capture the entirety of Moby Dick through a single episode in which a character, who I'm not sure even still exists, disappeared, why would it be impossible for this show to be unable to capture literary works in the entire course of the series and so far?
Because the show is too busy promoting propaganda of devil summonings with standards that are frankly too high for our kids to meet.
Now, Eric, you do realize you're trying to appeal to a open occultist right now.
So counterpoint, Andy, all I'm saying is that if we teach our kids that every time they summon a demon, they will summon a high-level, ultimate regenerating, high-class demon, then that's frankly just going to make kids extremely disappointed and get out of the occult game when the first demon they summon is a simple slime.
Kids don't need participation demons. They should be shooting for first-place demons only.
We need... Scott...
That is a good point. The first demon that I summoned was Stolas, who taught me about astronomy.
But
one of the Dukes of Hell.
Quite frankly, if we only shoot for winner demons, then our industry of demon summoners will be so small in comparison to great monster demon nations such as Japan and the Mongols, then we won't be able to keep up in this era of globalization. We need to broaden our base of devil summoners so that we can
Maybe
keep
we
up.
should have invested all our industry into demon summoning. Maybe we should diversify and look for global trade as the answer instead of protectionism.
Maybe we should diversify and look to simple physical gags and old fun-style drawings and classic designs that have been tried and tested. Maybe we should switch to those instead.
Alright, now, another question for you. You must save one of your characters from the show that you want to kick off. Which one do you save and why?
Why would I defend the show? I would save none of them.
But I would save Eel Dog, because his skin is wet.
Oof. Alright,
The
you got me.
perfect answer.
Oof, you got me there. Alright, to give a real answer, I believe I would save... Oh, that's kind of tough. I think I would save the Angel, because she's just the most different looking visually.
She has a great character design, much like many of the characters in this show, because they are great characters.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the characters are limited to, I'm an angel and you guys are devils, so I can't like you. Or, I'm a witch, but I'm kind of just a nice person, except for when I kill this person. A classic
deconstruction of Gabriel Dropout, Animeme's favorite show.
But again, a deconstruction where it takes it down to one single element, which is, I am an angel and you are demons.
It's because it's a master of its trade. It doesn't want to be a jack of all trades, master of none. It just wants to be a master of its one trade.
If I eat a piece of lettuce, it is not a salad.
Sometimes better than master of none. Wait, shit, I fucked that up. Really bad. Holy shit.
Lettuce does not.
You missed like the other half of that whole jack of all trades thing.
Lettuce does not make a salad.
But lettuce leaf does.
Then please let us leave this terrible show behind and keep watching Shinya Tensei Bakuban. Let our elderly have a reason to keep living.
Let our people who worship demons and liberalism and John Milton and Charles Schultz have a reason to keep living.
I think it's time that I drop my finishing argument statement.
Alright, I'm good for that.
Not my closing statement, the thing I say before my closing statement. Which is
okay.
just that Jashin doesn't even have legs, so she can't do a real drop kick. Boom.
But, much like the elderly, she is working to live with her disabilities. That's why, if we build ramps for the elderly, they will also work for dropkick.
Which is... So we need to keep the ramps around from Shinya Tensei Bakuban, is what you're saying.
No, we need to keep Eel Dog around.
Okay.
Because he's slippery when wet.
Well, do you have any final questions, Andy? Because I'm ready to move into closing statements.
You know what? I think that you guys have hit on every major point. Proceed to closing statements.
Okay. Jashin-chan Dropkick's characters are all dull and fail to appeal to any genre or demographic. It's not funny enough to be a comedy, there's nothing happening, and the characters don't have any chemistry to have a good slice of life, and they're not sexually appealing enough to be effective fat material. It's a rip-off Tom and Jerry with a bullshit violence that just emphasizes blood in place of any real kind of chase or thrill, and the main character can't even do a drop kick. It's ruining America by promoting domestic abuse between Jashin and Medusa, promoting bullying by saying that if you beat up your friends, you will be a beloved main character, whereas Shinya Tensei Bakuban is protecting the world from the onslaught of the elderly on our political systems. Plus the ending song is just really good in Bakugan. So finally I say, save your dick, pick, drop, kick.
Alright. For my closing argument, I'd like to tell you guys about a dream I once had. In this dream, I was going to the hearing of Martin Luther King Jr., except there was a mix-up, and he wasn't there. Instead, there were two judges, who both thought they were supposed to be using the room for a trial at 10. However, there was no sign at the door, so they couldn't tell who was right. The first judge, Judge Thomas, insisted he was supposed to be judging MLK in the room at 10, and this is the room where he usually presided in, so it made sense for him to be there. The second judge, Judge Peterson, insisted he was supposed to be judging Coach Ball in the room at 10, because even though this wasn't his normal room, there was construction in the building, and they'd switched around where the rooms were. Therefore, he was in this room instead of his normal room today. Judge Peterson decided to send his aide to go check on the room he was usually in to make sure Coach Ball wasn't already there. However, after about 10 minutes of waiting, the aide was not back, so they decided to send the stenographer to go check for the aide and to see if Coach Ball was in the room. However, after another 10 minutes of waiting, still there was no one back, so they decided to ask if anyone in the audience would go. I volunteered and went outside the door, and there I found both the aide and the stenographer waiting. So I asked them what they were doing. Judge Pearson's aide said that he went to check on the room where Judge Pearson's usually in, and he found waiting there was Coach Ball. However, he was afraid to go back in because Judge Peterson had a really bad temper when he was wrong. The stenographer backed this up by saying that it was true, and they often had to delete part of what Judge Pearson had said from the record because of all the swearing. So I told them I would go in and tell the judge because I was just a member of the audience and he couldn't get that mad at me. So I went in, and the two thanked me and I went in, and Judge Thomas and Judge Pearson looked up from their argument. Judge Pearson asked me, well, was he there or not? And I said, yes, sir, the ball is in your court.
Better Nate than Lever.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
And thus, the ball is in your court.
Alright, so it comes down to me then. Alright.
You are the judge.
So,
Judge Pearson.
Using my esteemed sense of looking at pictures of Google Images, I can tell that Shinya Tensei Bakuman is a show that I probably would never watch on my own. Jashin-chan Dropkick, I'd probably watch like 2 or 3 episodes and then drop. However, with that said, Eric has made a compelling argument as to why this show provides no substance whatsoever, and therefore I feel compelled to give the win to him.
Rip.
Sick, bro. Sick. Sick. I love our non-biased judge. Let's go have sex.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. It is a 1-0 me, and thank God we don't have to watch this show anymore.
Yeah, but now I have to watch Shinya Tensei Bakuman, which is worse.
Scott, don't get me wrong. That is quite bad, and I'm very sorry about that.
Do you have to watch the show? Sorry, can you choose the show next season or next week also?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just going to be 2 more weeks of this show.
Oh yeah,
but honestly, I used all my jokes.
Yeah, no, that show's going.
That's honestly...
You get me on this, that's going next.
Oh boy. Anyway, hey, thanks for being here, Andy. Thanks for being our guest, and thanks for picking me, most of all.
Yeah, screw you, Andy.
So I'm glad that we can keep being friends, at least.
Alright.
This has been Anime Survivor.
We have a show kicked off.
Yeah, we did it. 6 shows remaining.
Thank you very much for having me. I cannot wait to slide back into degeneracy.
That's what we're here for. For that sweet, late-stage weeabooism.
Exactly. Well, congratulations, Eric.
Well, yeah, congratulations, Eric.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Alright. So join us next week. Next week's an off week, so we won't be kicking a show off, but we'll be discussing where we stand with the 6 remaining shows. And, yeah. I've been Scott.
I'm Eric.
I'm Andy.
And hold your horses and count your cows.